Okay, everybody, I'm back. Wanted to show you a little bit about this yellow down here. Down here, this yellow that I'm using is a very pale yellow. It's a kind of a cool yellow. If you add white to it, it stays kind of towards the cooler side. It doesn't get real rich. So I'm using that in this painting because it's a cool painting. I'm trying to show that coldness, and didn't want to get too deep with the cadmium yellows or that kind of thing, or the oranges that might be putting off some of the light, some of the warmth in the light. But I'm keeping it controlled. So I'm using cobalt blue. This yellow is Radiant Lemon by Gamblin, and it's a it looks like it's got a lot of white in it, but it's very pale. It doesn't give that hot pop to it. So I'm also using quinacridone Garnet by Charvan, and that's a it's a pretty nice color. It's real pretty. Good transparency. I'm using that. Actually, it's in all of this, but it's muted down in many ways so that it's in there, but it's creating the gray tones instead of like a bright red or anything. So, and I'm keeping that one. That's also it's a very rich looking, but it's very transparent, and it is on the cooler side of the reds. So adding white to this, it's a cooler pink. So, and then with cobalt blue, and I'm using flake white replacement, which it's kind of mimicking flake white, which kind of, I mean, it's still got more titanium in it. It is a little bit more transparent than a titanium white, but it's controlling everything on the palette. So you can't go too dark. I am actually using ivory black as a black, and ivory black has got a cooler bluish cast to it. It's a little warmer in a way. Maybe you can tell what that is. But I can only go so cool or so warm. So controls that palette. And over here in the trees, I'm using the ivory black with quinacridone Garnet on there, and then a little bit of yellow to give it that warmer tones, warmer grays, where the sun may, or the light may be hitting it. So no umbers, nothing like that. I'm not using any oranges except what's made from the garnet and the yellow, and a lot of that is done through glazing. So the orangey tones that are in here have been glazed on there. Essentially the garnet over the yellow. Okay, so gives me a control palette, allows me to not go too dark or too hot. It keeps it in the cooler tones. So that's how this is working. All right. Been bringing in some foliage over here. I kind of skipped through. I started in the background here, worked my way forward, and then I started doing all this and some of this back here. Then I started bringing in the trees and stuff, but I kind of left that alone. Worked because this is my center of interest, so I worked it, and then I came naturally into here. That stark contrast here with the shade and the shadows on this side, and the cold against that warmer light, give it the pop. So as I worked that out, and I came in through here, brought in warmer tones on the edges, which is more of the garnet, because I didn't want this to compete with this, but it still had to be warmer, catching some of that light on the edges. So I used the garnet, and the way it works is the red is warmer than that blue, so it appears to be a warmer tone. It's catching some light, but it's still cool colors. It's just how you juxtapose those paints. And then working down through here, I did a lot of scumbling in here of dry paint on top of dry paint, and or I should say a little bit of medium, but I came across over dry paint and textured with a scumbling motion through here, bringing out all the colors that are above it into that snow. So that's an approach. Now I'll show you how to get to. I'm working these limbs in right now, and the way to do that is to add medium on top of here, and then I've been using this funky looking palette knife with the rounded edges. It's got that oval shape, which I thought, what am I going to ever use this for? And I found out that if you put the paint on there and you have this edge, you can roll it. It rolls real nice, and it makes real sharp, thin branches. So there's a use for it. I mean, it's amazing. I've all these years I've had this thing, I've never used it. But I found out that if you're trying to do straight lines with a palette knife, I can do it. But the problem is that edge, that straighter edge, is limiting on how I can curve it without cutting. This one just allows me to roll right in. So it's a useful tool. I suggest getting one. All right, well, let's get back to painting.